Welcome everyone to our winter solstice conversation celebration. My name is Monica Moss-Gransberry. For about 30 years now, even more, I've been helping people to map out their future and make their visions real using this practice called life mapping. You see Everett here with me in the background, being supportive. He's my husband, and we're joined in promoting this work and supporting people in figuring stuff out. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about the solstice and what it means, and a little bit about life mapping and getting prepared and setting our intentions for the new year. So this is a great photo that my brother sent me last year, and I just love the intricacy of what winter brings. So the solstice, the winter solstice, is really about the beginning of winter. It's actually on the 21st, which is Saturday. It's the time where we have the shortest daytime, at least in the northern hemisphere, and the longest night. And it begins to shift back towards longer days and shorter nights starting on the solstice. Winter brings such a wonderful sense of peace and opportunity to go inward and reflect on what's important. And so this time is celebrated all over the world in many ways, in every culture. The Egyptians felt it was a divine connection between the winter solstice and the creation, creation itself. That there was a window or a portal that's open that allows us to discern and reflect and go inward in deeper ways during this time, during winter. All of the other kinds of celebrations, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, bring us a sense of hope and possibilities with the new year.
Yeah, some would say, now, this could lead to a slew of arguments, but I'm going to say that some would say that the solstice is a greater symbol of the creation than Christmas. I'm going to leave that at like that, and I'm going to let you chew on that concept, and we can come back to that a little later.
Ooh, you just stirring up controversy. It's also a time of powerful energy for regeneration, for renewal, for self-reflection. Hey, Sandra, glad to see you. Welcome. We're just starting to talk about what is the winter solstice and why would we pay attention to it, and some of the ways that it's celebrated and the opportunity that that brings. And that leads us to the life mapping process or practice. So for those of you who are familiar with this process, this is the time, over the next few days is a perfect time to reflect on your vision for your life, where you are in that process, what's blocking you now, because our blocks evolve. We grow, we get new things going on inside of us. And then what's your action strategy, or what's the way in which you want to move forward? Part of the reason the vision is so important is that we move naturally as human beings towards the pictures we create. And so you have the opportunity to be a conscious creator by getting clear about what you do want. You have a vision is really the picture of what's important to you. It includes your values, how you want to live. Some people would call that mission, the impact you want to have in your lifetime, purpose. And that vision shifts and morphs and evolves as we grow and age. And at different stages in our lives, it'll be different. So, for the young people listening who are young adults, you're full of vigor and optimism or cynicism about the world, and therefore have big plans and a big vision. And as we age and move to our second and third act, sometimes our fourth round of what we want, those things may shift. For me, I wanted to build this big consulting firm, and then I hit 50 and I said, I don't really want to do that anymore. I want to make a difference, but in a different way. I'm not, and my vision changed, and so did my business strategy. And I became more focused on the impact that I wanted to make than kind of some of the other things I was doing. Welcome, Emily. Good to see you. And so one of the ways, I had a client today say, well, how do I know what I want? And part of what it was she needed to take some time to reflect. And so this activity, we'll get it started now, and then you'll be able to finish it as homework. Is called My Ideal Day. And what I like about it is you start thinking about your ideal day at the peak of the success that you're imagining now. And you get an opportunity to say how you want to live and what are the things you want to be doing. Who do you want in your world? What's the process? And those of you who've done the life mapping workshop or I'm going to mute people just so we can have a clean recording. And just how would you like your day to go? What do you want to be doing? And so when I first did this, My Ideal Day process, I envisioned, waking up with my husband, doing some exercise and meditation, going downstairs to my office, checking email, the mail, having checks come in the mail. I had a helper. I had a beautiful home. At the time, I was in an apartment. So this was really what I was envisioning in my future. And what I learned were there were some things I could change right away and start experiencing right away. I changed some of what I ate for breakfast. I started getting up a little bit earlier before the kids so that I could do some meditation exercise. I didn't need to wait for the house for that. And it helped me understand what I was looking for. So when we started looking for a house, I really had clarity around what was needed. And it was so funny because, you write these things, do these exercises, and then you kind of forget about them. And I remember bringing my assistant at the time to the house. We were going to figure out where to put the office furniture and kind of how to organize things. And I looked up at the house and burst into tears. And the tears were joyful. I realized, even though I'd been to the house many times, I realized I had hadn't really realized that there was a balcony right outside of the master bedroom, even though I kind of knew it, but it didn't hit me that was part of my ideal day, that this house was actually manifesting the thing that I had asked for. And so writing things down, getting that kind of clarity, even though you're not sure how it's going to come to you, gives you an opportunity to see the universe working in your behalf as things progress. So why don't we take like 2 or 3 minutes for you to start thinking about the next phase in your life, maybe in 3 to 5 years, where you want to be, what you want to be doing, and start writing, at least jotting some notes down about your ideal day. Okay, take another, 30 seconds to put your final last thought, your current thought on paper. So the next step in the life mapping process is to start putting categories of what's important to you. Based on that, there's a couple of other exercises in the course that you can enjoy, participate in, that will give you even other levels of clarity about what's important to you. So for Everett and I, when we did our life map together, family was very important, community, business, spiritual development. What else is on our list?
And of course, each
Education,
other.
relationships, yeah. And then we had the opportunity to say, okay, well, where do I want to be in those categories? And that's what I'll invite you to do as part of your next steps.
It also helps you create a better understanding of how to disperse your energy when you start looking at those categories, some things you will have I'm going to use the term toehold. So you'll have a grasp of it and you'll be well along in that process of your vision. But there are certain other areas where you may have work to do. And then you have to understand whether or not, that's your work or your work with your partners or significant other. If you're just by yourself, then it is all your work. So you'll have to disseminate what is what and then work on that. So when you set categories, even though you might have them categorized properly, you also have to go back and see where you are internally, emotionally, spiritually within that particular aspect of your vision.
You're getting ahead of me, baby.
Whether or not you got to work on it. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the vision part is where do you want to be? And then the current reality part, using those same categories as Everett was alluding to, is where are you now? And I just want to say a little bit about where we are in the world, because you want to take that into consideration as you're mapping out, creating your life map. And especially this year, as we're moving forward, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, things are transforming and changing. We can't quite see them yet. Our systems are shifting and changing. The rules in our society, what people can do or not do, what's appropriate and inappropriate, are dramatically being tested and transformed. We don't know where that's going to end up. And so how do you stay aware without, one, scaring yourself to death, without adding to that energy, the part of it that doesn't feel good to you, but not being kind of having your head in the sand, or being like the frog in the pot who doesn't even realize that he's being cooked. And so it's a delicate kind of back and forth that I've been going through with how much do I want to listen to the news? How much do I want to scan the external environment? How much do I want to scan and pay attention to my internal? How am I paying attention to how I'm feeling? And then looking around to see what's impacting me and making some kind of meaning of it so I know how to move forward. So we're in a very tricky time in that regard. And so many of our systems are broken. And even when it seems like chaos or insanity going on around us, there's some way in which things are transforming. And the players that we can see, whether it's on the news or in our neighborhood or in our organizations, are there to support, are there to facilitate that transformation. Now, then you say, well, how do I impact the transformation so that it's good for me and mine, or so that there's a positive impact? And that remains to be seen on how bold we want to be, and how well we manage our emotions and our energy. But using those same categories, you want to say, what's your current reality? When I did this with my first ideal day, it was like, oh, I live in an apartment. I got a hoopty, which is a raggedy car, but it runs. I got 2 small kids, this and that. It was just kind of just the facts, not judgment. Every time I'm facilitating this process with others, excuse me. With others, and they start saying, well, I should be doing this and I should be doing that. I'm like, move away from judgment. No shoulds, ought tos. Just where are you now? And in those same categories. And then you get a chance to look at what's in the way. What are the blocks that are keeping you from your vision? Because on a spiritual level, once you imagine it, once you get clear and ask for it, it is given. Everything is available to us, and we get in our way in so many ways. And then society has rules, and there's things that you may have to do if you want to be a brain surgeon. I used to tell young people when I speak to at schools, if you want to be a brain surgeon, there's a process. So then part of what's might be an obstacle is understanding that process and going through it. So you can look at it in another way. You can look at it as, what do I want? What's in the way? And what is needed now for me to move forward? And the answer to that question will change all the time. But it's in a time of big transformational change, in a time where things are uncertain, what's needed now is a really good question to ask at any given moment. So you can tap into your inner knowing, you can tap into your intuition, because what you won't have access to all the information you need. Things will be changing maybe faster than you can discern, and then you have to rely on your inner knowing. So what is needed now? In fact, sometimes I'll be in a session or a meeting or facilitating a process, and when something feels off, and I'll actually ask myself, what's needed now? And whatever the answer, whatever the first thought that comes to my mind, after checking it out, making sure that keeps us on track or whatever, that's what I'll go with. It might be an intervention, it might be a question, it might be a statement, it might be a thought, and usually it's right on time. Now, the thing about intuition, it's like any muscle. You have to practice it. And part of being part of a community of practice is it gives you an opportunity to share, to practice, to get feedback, to test things, and to keep these things top of mind. So the next part of the process is moving you to action. So what are the key actions that will allow me to take all of this that I know about my current reality into consideration, and then move through whatever the blocks or obstacles are towards my vision? So what are the big actions? And that's where you start thinking, like, strategically, what can I do that will move me 10 giant steps forward? Sometimes the what can I do is to sit. Because, for instance, like this last book, The Technology of Doing, Creating, and Being, my process was so totally different than when I wrote the life mapping book. I didn't know what, I knew it was time for me to write a book, but I had no clue about what to write about. I wasn't clear. I was uncertain. And so I set off on a whole bunch of actions that had nothing to do with writing the next book. And Spirit, at one point, I was in a hotel room by myself. I was reflecting because things weren't going the way I had planned. And Spirit just said, just write. Stop. Just write. And I was like, huh? Yeah, you heard me. Just write. Just write. And I was like, but I don't know what to write. I had a lot of things in the way, like my thinking. And finally I said, okay, I'm going to listen and obey. I'm going to just write. So if I just wrote, what would that look like? I said, well, I write in my journal. Maybe for the next 30 days, I'll just write in my journal every day for an hour, 2 hours, like longer than usual. And so that's what I did. And on the way back from visiting my mother at the end of the summer, I started reading my journal. And then it was like the stuff was jumping off the page. Oh, this technology and this thing. I didn't call them technologies at the time, but this thing. Oh, there's this lesson about discernment. There's this lesson about vision. There's this thing about listening and obedience and strategy and scanning. Oh, this will make a great blog. And then it was too long. And then I made an article. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute, this is the book. And so sometimes we get a little piece of information of what we should do, and if we follow it, it will lead us to the thing that we want, especially if we don't start questioning the hell out of it. So that's my story about strategy. But we do need some kind of map and a way to move forward, and that's where this life mapping process comes into play. And so setting some goals for the year. This is a great time to set goals and intentions for the year. And then I'm recommending all my clients and all our members to do a 90-day action plan, to not try and see past the next 90 days, because things are going to keep changing. And so what you can think of now for 6 months down the road may not actually be what's needed as things evolve. So 90 days. So what's the, from January to March 31st is our first quarter and our first 90-day action plan. I do want to say something about 2020. I was doing a little research, and I was looking in my books and looking online. I didn't get exactly what I was looking for, but I did want to give you just a few things about 2020. So the first thing, the number 2, represents harmony, duality, and relationships. The zeros represent kind of everything and nothing, like everything is possible and there's this void. And then when in numerology, you add numbers together. So the 0, the 2, the 0, the 2, the 2, the 0 is a 4. And 4 is a very foundational number. It's a number around community. What are our relations? It's a relationship number. And it also is about setting the foundation. So with my entrepreneurial clients, I've noticed that everything that's coming up is around what's the process, what's the infrastructure that needs to be in place, how do you get your finances in order, how do you put things in place so that no matter which way you need to pivot in the coming year, you have your house in order, so to speak. So this holiday season, going into the new year, is a great time to declutter. I need to clean my own office. Get your house, literally get your physical house in order, get your thoughts in order, set up your foundation for the goals that you're setting for the year and your intention. Put the mechanics in place so that you're ready to receive all the things you're asking for, 2, you can spend your time scanning instead of building the process for this, figuring out how to invoice or figuring out what your routine in your personal life is going to be in terms of your health or your wellness or your exercise or whatever the things are that you're paying attention to. But setting some structure in place so that you don't have to think about those, you just do it. And then that gives you more time and brain space for scanning your environment and your internal self and your external environment. And you can see what's happening and what's shifting, and you can start to discern where you need to pivot or change how you're approaching getting what you want. Does that make sense? You can nod, yeah, great. All right, so now with action planning, I have a couple things I want to say. One, your plate's already pretty full, most of us. So don't add a long 1,000-thing to-do list. Figure out the key kind of 1 or 2 things you need to do each month, each week towards your vision. So, for instance, for me, I look at, okay, I ask what's needed now on Sunday or the week before, and I put 2 or 3 things I'm going to do that are outside my regular activities in my calendar. And I say, well, I don't get to play on Friday, until I get these 3 things done. Sometimes they're simple things like I need to call the student loan people or the IRS, or sometimes they're bigger activities like it's book launch week, so I need to do this chunk of work. And I'm really, really optimizing and using my calendar these days to stay on track. With the Life Mapping membership, we're going to be doing a live Q&A accountability group every other week. We're thinking Tuesdays. That's been a good day so far, but we're open to being influenced over the next 2 weeks as we start to set our schedule by you, to support people staying on track, sorting through all of the things they're paying attention to get to the essence and to stay on track with this practice. So right now, take a minute to just think, like, what do you want? What do you want to get done in the next 90 days? By the time the spring equinox comes, March 20-something usually, what do you want to be celebrating? What are the things you have control over that you can get moving on? And keep it into 1 to 3 items, because you have all your other duties to also manage. The other important question is, what support do you need? What resources do you already have to help you? And what do you need? What's missing? And how will you hold yourself accountable to your plan? So I'll give you a few minutes to chew on that and make yourself some notes. Okay, I see some of you looking up, some of you still working. Take 30 seconds to finish that thought that you're having right now. So I know I've been letting you get started and then interrupting you. I just want you to get a taste and start putting a few things down so that you can go back and go deeper in this work for yourself. And the next few days are a great time to do it in between your Christmas shopping or whatever holiday things you have planned. Going into the weekend and the actual solstice on the 21st is a great time to continue, like, contemplating and really setting your goals for the year, setting your intentions, and in the most positive way possible. So really discerning what you do want versus what you don't want. Like, sometimes we start with, well, I don't want that again. And then how do you reframe that so that you're saying what you do want? And the 90-day goals, I would say, have those be as measurable and tangible as possible. Your vision doesn't have to be tangible or realistic at all. But then the chunk you choose to work on this year and in the first 90 days, very grounded in reality. Okay? So I want to open up the mics, and or you can unmute yourself when you're ready and open it up for questions, insights, any confusions you have, whatever you need to voice, and open up the discussion for all of us. So as you started looking at your intentions for this year, what kinds of blocks or thoughts did you bump into, for instance? Yes, Lisa.
You know, in some ways, I feel like I have a very clear vision of what I want that life to be. But on the other hand, I almost feel like I sabotage myself from working toward that. Like I feel like sometimes I get close, but then I don't know if it's fear. I don't know what. Does anybody else experience that? Like that I almost undermined my own efforts sometimes.
Sure. Are you aware of how you do it?
Usually not in the moment.
No, but I mean, like as you look back, you're like, oh, I did that 3 times now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those
Yeah.
awarenesses are great.
Okay.
And then the next question is, what triggers that behavior or that thought pattern?
And that's probably where I need to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Lisa, I'm going to share something with you. Sometimes when I look at my goals and I start pursuing them, sometimes I have a tendency to get off track because I try to align myself with what Monica and I had agreed to or what we're doing. So I might be focusing too much time on one area and lose track of where she's progressing. And if we don't have open and honest and meaningful discussion about that along the way, she'll be further along the track than I am before I get back to it. And I kind of get lost in that regard. So what I'm trying to do going into next year is trying to make certain that I allow her to hold me accountable for the things that we agree to, so that when I do drift off, because I'm doing so many different things in my third act, that I can come back and center myself to give that additional time and lay off of some of the things I have been focusing on that I think I now have on track. So I don't know if that makes sense to you or if that helps you at all.
Yeah, no, I think it does, because I think from a career and job perspective, I feel like that piece is always the piece that's my priority.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to let a ball drop, so to speak, it's never going to be that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but sometimes that causes issues in the other areas, you know, when you always put that one area first, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'll join you in being that I have immense focus on my business and career. And sometimes I overbook myself. I'm looking at Everett because we've been having this conversation. And then how do I start catching that earlier when I have some choice about it versus after the schedule's set and I don't really have a choice. I just got to live through it.
Right. And I think too, it comes down to, in my case too, is learning to say no to things that aren't driving me toward that vision, right? You know, because ultimately, if I say yes to something that I'm saying no to my vision, you know, if I say yes, if I say yeah.
Wonderful framing. If you're saying yes to something that's not, you know, contributing to where you want to be, you're saying no to your vision. It's beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Because it's hard to say no.
Yeah, it's hard to remember that at the time, you know.
Yep. That's one of the things that I really recommend keeping that vision in front of you, whether it's on a little, I have all kind of little things taped to my computer table and stuck on the bookshelf in front of where I sit to remind me of what I'm supposed to be doing. I carry little sticky notes with my 3 tasks for the week, or sometimes 6, but my way of keeping it manageable is putting it on a sticky note instead of a long piece of paper. And just so that I can stay focused, because it's so easy these days to get unfocused. It's so easy to get distracted by other people's emergencies, your inbox, you know, the television, other people's stress. And so then how do you keep your vision or your goals and the things that are important to you in front of you? I keep my Google Calendar up all the time, and I'm getting to where I'm documenting everything in there, and I'm keeping those 3 things. Like, I see the whole week, and then I see those 3 things on Sunday at 3 o'clock in the morning where I want to put my 3 tasks for this week that I'm got to get done no matter what, that move my big goals along. They're not appointments. They're not, you know, the grocery store. They're not clients, but they're things that are important for my goals.
And sometimes those are the hard things too, so it's easy to push them down, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And procrastinate about them.
Yeah.
Does
So
anyone else have anything they want to add?
Sandra, I'm going to unmute you because it looks like you're talking. Go ahead, Sandra.
Okay, for me, it's distractions, just a lot of distractions.
Mhm.
And I started listing, like if you asked me today what I did yesterday, I probably don't remember half of what I did yesterday. So I started actually keeping lists of what I'm doing with my time to you know, just to see what I'm doing. And I'm actually doing things I need to do. But for me, it's like doing more prioritizing. It's not even prioritizing, but it's just continuously really blocking out that time to stay focused on what I really want to do.
Absolutely.
Because I have long task lists, and they're lists of things I have to do, I need to do, and of course some is what I want to do, but so I'm trying to shorten my task list, because my vision is not to live a life of off of tasks. I completed all these tasks. You know, I mean, you know, that's you know, one thing is like I just don't want to live the rest of my life by a task list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Perfect. Other questions, comments, or thoughts?
Meeting. This is Emily. I don't know if you can hear me through the cell phone.
I can hear you.
Oh, great. Well, in terms of blocks, I feel that my blocks are that I take too long to process experiences as they unfold or happen. I'll be going in one direction, and then I have a desire to pivot towards making an action or decision or choice that's going to be for the greatest collective good, but instead find myself, I would say, scattered from that initial direction that I've had, say, intuition to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big thing for me, is
Let me get a little bit.
processing that unfolds and then not being able to pivot as fast as I'd like to.
So are you what's happening when you're staying in kind of analysis of the situation? What's happening for you then?
Well, I think it's exactly that, an analysis of all of the actions that are going on that, say, caused this event to change to another event, and then looking at how to activate and apply the technologies towards an event that unfolded or something that was unplanned, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so applying the technologies is where I always want to be able to pivot to create the positive shifts, but I find myself pausing and analyzing events as they unfold,
Yeah.
positive or negative. So that's a block.
Yeah. So, like the questions, I have a lot of questions, which I'll just say some of them and it'll give you something to think about. Are you second guessing yourself? Is it that you're looking for a guarantee when you're analyzing every, over analyzing or analyzing your choices? Are you listening also to your intuition, or are you just listening to your brain or your intellect to make the choice? And it may be any of those or none of those at any given time. It might be you really need to think through, like Everett's really good at kind of looking at all sides of a situation and being very strategic. I'm better at being more intuitive. And so then when we talk it through, then that's helpful because I'll get some of his thought pattern. I'm pretty strategic too, but and also pay attention to the timing and the time. So how do you, let me think of a good way to say it.
Let me ask you this, Emily. When you, I hope I'm using the words that I'm using are correct. You're on a task and then you go off. But when you say you go off, where exactly do you go? Are you picking up an activity that is a distraction to what you're trying to do? Or are you, or do you jump to another task? So like for me,
I think it's,
Go ahead.
I think it's more so I have a vision, a clear vision of the direction I should be taking, say for that quarter, for that month, for that day, for that week. And then the circumstances will transpire that what's the best word to say? That present a new way to look at that vision or plan that was going to take place. And then I just find myself, as I said, processing it in a manner that, is there a way to make a collective good over this, or is it something just for the individual, or what category to put it in? I think those foundational categories or areas that we want to focus on and bring attention to, I always see a shift from the vision that it was intended for that project or task, and then something will unfold that changes it in a manner where it requires a lot more thought and insight and intuition to then make the best action or decision regarding what happened.
So do you want to just do it faster? Is that?
I think I should be able to pivot faster to technologies like scanning and listening and communicating that will lead to a positive outcome versus just as you said earlier, analysis of what.
Yeah, so
is that
one of the things, like anytime you're learning a new way of being or new process, it's slow. And then you're like, but I need to make this decision 5 days ago, but I'm still trying to work the process. And so it's like when you're exercising, you have to build that muscle memory to where, oh, now you can just go do it. And so be patient with yourself as well.
I think the muscle memory piece is critical. I also think that as you begin going through this process and you repeat, you'll find yourself talking to people that are using the same processes that you're using, especially when it comes to life mapping. And so you get a clue or a hint either from them or through viewing their process and how they're going through it as to how you might be able to manipulate going through these different processes quicker for yourself, and makes it easier for you to develop the muscle memory, understand how those changes are impacting you, and find a pathway to a meaningful and positive alternative.
So hang in there.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you both. Very, very helpful.
Okay. Anyone else? Sandra, how are you doing over there? Because you look in deep thought.
Oh wow, can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, I'm actually sitting here killing two birds with one stone, because part of my list had included working on my certification as a minority-owned business, woman-owned business, female-owned business, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm sitting here, I am going through and checking off in my application.
All right.
That is that's part of my my processing of what needs to happen.
Okay.
Over the next 90 days. So I'm just enjoying listening as I'm sitting here working.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Just wanted to get your voice in the mix.
Okay.
Anything else? So I want to share a little bit about our community that we're building and what we're imagining, like creating as we build this group of like-minded people, that there's a place for folks like you, for our friends, and to go and access the courses and books. So right now we have 2 courses. We're working on some other things. There's videos. There's a lot of these sessions that are recorded. The bi-weekly Q&As are recorded for your use as a member, and really access to a group of people to help for all of us to be able to learn together. And so we've created this membership program that we're launching, and we have the first cohort coming in, but a place for us to grow and learn together, to be around like-minded people that don't think you're crazy when you say certain things, where we can hold each other accountable. We can practice these technologies and be in a place of support that's without judgment. And so right now, as a member, for those of you who choose to join us, you get access to the ebooks, the digital courses, webinars, forums, the live weekly Q&As, and we just started a private Facebook group for members, and then discounts on events and one-on-one coaching. And I was thinking about it today. I checked in with Everett. He thought, oh, that's a good idea. That'd be fine. We have this life mapping journey journal. It's literally a journal, but the life mapping worksheets are in the front. And for those that we want to give that to those of you who choose to join our community at the full access membership level before the end of the year. So we'll just mail it to you when you join.
So I'm going to say right away, if you're looking at this slide, everyone's eyes are focused in on this little number here that sits at 2,500. This is a reverse kind of mentality piece where when you read the fine print and you see what full access membership is for you at $39.99 per month, you'll see that that's a major difference between that $2,500 and that $39.99, which you could put out there even if you wanted to do the math for what it would cost you per year to do that. $39.99 one night at dinner a month generally is what you would spend out there doing your thing if you're being social. If you're not, maybe you have $39.99 in your piggy bank. I don't know, but I just want you to know that this is very reasonable, and there's a lot to take in when you get in there and you climb in and you start doing the work. In addition to that, you do become a part of a community, so the information that we share with each other only builds on the platform of all the things that we do have to offer.
And so this is what inspired us. I was creating the digital courses like every coach and every person that's written a book, and creating an online platform. And faced with let me sell this to you, now I'm going to sell you something else, now I'm going to sell you something else. It just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right. I didn't want to do that. I was like, this doesn't feel right. Why can't I just give it to them? Why can't I just give it to the people I care about? And then it dawned on me, you do have to charge something, but what would be a really easy, reasonable charge that would help build community, which is one of the things that we care about a lot. And you wouldn't have to nickel and dime people. They would just have access to everything, and then they could tell you, we need this, and you could create it. I said, yeah, let's build a community, not kind of an online cash machine. So that's how we got to this point of saying, yeah, we have a free membership. It's limited, but it gives you access. It gives you information. There's some videos there if you want to check them out. But the full access membership gives you everything that we have. And as we create more, you'll have access to that. So right now, we're saying, get your 90-day action plan, no matter what. Look at the membership. Call us. Get on Everett's calendar or my calendar. Talk through it, whether this is going to support you and what you're wanting to do. And if it feels good, if it feels right, we welcome you to join us. This is a website. And check it out. We're coming to the end of our time, and I'm going to open up the mics and just would love to hear one thing you're taking away from our time today. All right, one thing you're taking away. No, she's on the phone. So how about if I do a roll call so then you don't have to guess if it's your turn?
Call me last.
Okay. Then I'll start at the bottom of my screen. Sandra, one thing you're taking away?
So the one thing I'm taking away is this idea of putting down some steps over the next 90 days, getting clear about what I'd like to accomplish in the next 90 days.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Emily?
My birthday.
Oh, plus your birthday? Congratulations.
No, by March isn't my birthday, so that's,
okay.
Yeah.
Emily, one thing you're taking away from our session?
One thing I'm taking away is creating positivity and focusing on energy building activities. I was set to track and employ positive affirmations, but you would still need energy to maintain that. And so that was a great takeaway for me, the energy building techniques.
Awesome. Lisa?
Hi, sorry, my cat Seamus decided to come visit us.
Hey, Seamus.
I think my takeaway is just to keep my vision top of mind and not let it get lost within my day-to-day.
Perfect. Sandra?
I would say for me, one would be vision, to keep my vision out in front of me. So I have this way I look at that if you hold your vision out in front of you, the universe will organize itself around you. And so just keeping that vision out in front of me.
Perfect. Perfect. How about you? What are you taking away, baby?
I'm taking away how important this type of work is. And I also see the need to get more involvement from the other gender. And when I say that, I say men. You know, I think that it's an important part in terms of being able to open just a clear dialogue between the sexes, whether you're with a partner or not. It's a good dialogue so that people can have a greater understanding as to how we need to conduct ourselves or how we need to have forward thinking efforts going all the time in order to, I think, strengthen our bond of communication. And in relationship, it's also important for a lot of different reasons. I could go on for days with that. But I'm also encouraged at the fact that there's involvement here and that a lot of different information is being taken in by me from each of you ladies. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
For me, I'm encouraged that you all showed up, that the session had value, that this work is relevant and useful just in our day-to-day practical interactions and helping us just stay focused. For me, it just reminds me to stay focused, and I've been working and stay away from judgment. Okay. And I've been working on that, having that top of mind for all of this month, after a really intense November. And the need for taking breaks. So, oh, good idea. So we got one more little thing, but really thank you so much for being here. And we got one little treat. Go ahead, baby.
So I want you, if you could, please just kind of regulate your volume because I don't know how it's going to impact you, but I am going to give you a little raw energy from my physical being, okay? And I'm going to use a singing bowl to get that done for you, okay? Just give me one moment. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. It did feel good. So keep thinking, keep managing and focusing your thoughts, and keep bringing love into the world until we get together again. If you have questions or other things that come up, just email me. Happy to answer or get you on the phone or help you figure it out. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Have a happy holidays, however you celebrate it. Look forward to seeing you again, either online or in person, or however we can manage that.
Yes, looking forward.
Y'all be cool.
All right, take care. God bless.
Meeting.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.